Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
Great.
I love it.
How
You
are
should
you?
be great.
I am great. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm great, but I feel pretty good.
Hey, all you vipers out there. Hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. We're about to get normal.
Yeah.
And we're doing a couple things right now. We are drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
We are drinking a cannabis-infused beverage that was sent to me by a friend of mine. And the company that he works for now is a company called Trail Magic. And he sent us some cannabis-infused beverages. And I actually really like these.
They're enjoyable.
The name of the company is Trail Magic. You can only get them in Minnesota for now, most likely. But he sent me 4 flavors. And the one that I'm drinking that I actually love this is half and half. It is like a John Daly or an Arnold Palmer or whatever you want to call it. I would call it a John Daly because it's infused. And it's a 5 milligram THC drink. And it's not only just lemonade and iced tea mixed together. It has a little bit of carbonation to it, which makes it even more spectacular than me. Because I love seltzer water, so I drink a ton of it. You can ask Mrs. Weedman. I drink a lot. And this is really good. And it's 5 milligrams. And you're drinking, which one you're drinking, Mrs. Weedman?
I am drinking the lime margarita. And it's 5 milligrams, non-alcoholic, and like super, super simple ingredients. It's sparkling water, limes, lemons, oranges, cane sugar, agave syrup, sea salt, cannabis extract, potassium sorbate, and sodium benzoate. So super clean product.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Yeah, I think mine has a little bit of sugar in it. Not much, though.
Yeah, agave.
I really can't see all the ingredients here.
Oh,
It's
Mr.
kinda-
Weedman needs
No, it's
my
dark.
glasses.
It's dark over here, so
Oh,
I
it's
don't need your
dark.
glasses. But it is ingredients: sparkling water, black tea, which I love black tea, lemons, cane sugar, hemp extract, potassium sorbate, and sodium benzoate. It's pretty good.
They're good. It's just a nice, fresh, light flavor.
Yes.
And they're 5 milligrams of cannabis. So
Yes, and
super cool.
I'd like to thank Trail Magic and my friend Brandon for sending these down to us. I really appreciate it. They're really good, and this is the second round we've gotten. So a plug, if you're in Minnesota somewhere, or you're in somewhere in Minneapolis or St. Paul, if they sell them, you should try them because their flavors are good. They also send us a berry basil and a hop water one, which is just
Yeah.
straight seltzer.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's delicious. So thank you for sending us down. And now we're about to get normal.
Let's get normal.
Let's smoke some sour gas that was given to me by our good friend Big Earl. And I smoked this on the show yesterday with Big Earl, and we did our Grow Hour show. We had a special guest on yesterday, Lance, the chief marketing officer for Grove Bags, and it was a fun show. So if you have a chance, it should be out this week too. You should take a listen to that if you're a grower, or even if you buy weed from a dispensary and you want a better way to store, besides the 8 Decades jars, of course. But they're different. I would say this with the Grove Bags. They are great for curing. So for your 8-week cure, and then you put them in the 8 Decades jars, and then you use those bags again, and they're phenomenal.
But they're also great because they come in large sizes.
Yes.
They're great for your
Oh, yeah, you could put-
if you're a home grower, you need some big containers for your weed. They're great. They're big, 4-gallon bags or something.
Those are ginormous.
There's multiple sizes.
Yeah, and you
But
can.
there's a place for those and our 8 Decades
Yes,
jars.
of course. And Lance and I had a talk
Yeah.
about that
Yeah.
yesterday. So it was great. But thank you, Lance, for being on the show. We appreciate you. Very knowledgeable in the cannabis industry altogether. He's been in it for a long time. So please take a listen to that show. It was awesome. So I'm going to smoke. Miss Weeman's going to tell you about a little trip she took this
Yeah.
weekend with her sisters. Well, I get normal.
I had a little road trip down to St. Louis. I have some family down there. So we took a girls' trip. 2 of my sisters and I drove down to see another sister and nephew and a niece, and it was great. We had a good old time, and now Missouri, the state of Missouri, is legal, recreational. And so, of course, we had to visit a dispensary. So I looked up dispensaries near me, and the one I chose was Suede, but not suede like the material. It was SWADE. And I liked it because I'm kind of a architecture nerd, and
Nerdy.
the buildings were they were like, one looked like an old Asian restaurant, one looked like an old church, and I think one was like an old school. So they converted old buildings. I have an appreciation for that. So great little experience, fun little shop in a nice little historic district over by the Anheuser-Busch factory. And it was great. We went in, we popped in, and a lot of it, like I just wanted to see. It's just nice to see a new dispensary. And I was curious. I had looked up a couple times while we were there if there were any consumption lounges. There was at one advertised inside the dispensary, but we, by that time, were on our way out of town. So I'll be going back, and I'll have to check out their consumption lounge.
I'll have to hop a ride in the car with you ladies and come down next time.
Yeah.
And just check it out.
It's a fun little city.
I haven't been to St. Louis in a hot minute.
It's a fun city.
It's been a while since I've been there, and this was before legalization. Yeah. So,
and we went to a bar one night, and they had an outdoor patio, and because I had looked up like what are the like public consumption laws, I couldn't find anything, or I just didn't spend enough time reading through the state laws to find them, and so at the bar, I just asked the waiter, I'm like, hey. What's the deal here? How do you smoke weed? Where do you go? What do you do? And he's like, oh, just go out in our parking lot. It always smells like weed around here. He's like, go out in the parking lot. It says don't come back in, but don't worry. Just push the button. We'll let you back in. And boom, we went out back. And
what kind of bar did you go to that they had to push a button to get in?
it was like the back gate. Like they had it all
gotcha,
secured.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, what kind of bar
Not
are
a
you going
button.
to?
No, not like it was a secret code word safe house.
They had to give the secret word.
No, it just had a secure gate, Mr. Weedman. Well, we were at the strip club. No.
I'm glad you had a good time in St. Louis. What else? What else?
What else? We had our doorbell went off last night. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Oh,
Why is the doorbell going off? And
that's right.
Popped my phone on. And there's a dog, just a husky, like doing in our front yard with no leash and no human. I was like, that dog doesn't belong without a leash.
It was a beautiful husky.
So I was on a hunt. I grabbed Yuki's leash. I grabbed a big dog treat, and I kind of walked down the street trying to encourage and lure him with a dog treat. He was having no part of it. But we kind of concluded where the dog came from. We had seen him while we were out walking Yuki. No neighbors came out. I'm like, where are my neighbors? I'm yelling, come here, doggy, doggy, doggy.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And we rescued a dog.
So we rescued a little doggy.
Yeah, he or she was very pretty. Yeah. Very pretty husky. And then, I mean, I tell you what, the sour gas got me baked already.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what we were supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
So while you were out of town, I listened to a podcast that Paulie sent me.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a debate podcast. And it was two people talking for legalization and two people against legalization with a Q&A kind of thing. And I will say this, never argue with a strong woman. First and foremost, you'll get eaten up. And but the two women that were for cannabis had some great points. Now, the two people that were against cannabis was the same song and dance I've been hearing since I was a kid. And about 99% of that stuff has been debunked. It was the same stuff I was hearing like from the DARE programs.
Right.
And all the stuff that's
old
information, terrible information, that it was a gateway drug and it makes you lazy and it brings crime to your neighborhood and violent crimes to your neighborhood. And I was listening to this podcast, and Paulie told me I'd probably get pissed, and I didn't. I went into it listening, because once he said that, I said, I'm going to go into this listening to an open mind, because I know what they're going to talk about. It's going to be the same stuff I always hear and always read about, the negativity of cannabis and marijuana. So what I decided to do while Mrs. Weedman was away, and I could have enjoyed the hell out of myself and smoked a lot of weed and ate a lot of edibles and did a lot of cool stuff. And I went to a cool event on Saturday too and didn't even touch the stuff. Didn't touch cannabis at all. I went 3 days and without using at all, without touching it. And trust me, it is very hard when you're walking up and down from our studio to the kitchen, because I have my weed bar there. And you have all of the stuff to smoke, and ground weed was in the 8 decades tray, and my Zenko was filled, and everything was there. My new Dynavap toy was filled, and I mean, my Puffco for hash was there. I mean, you could
everything
you could think of, you would want to smoke out of. And I walked past that I walk past this probably 20, 30 times, 40, 50 times a day, up and down from the studio to the kitchen. And I never once did I veer from what I wanted to do for 3 days. Like I walked by and looked at it, but it didn't tempt me to go and use it.
Right.
Because here's the reason why. After I listened to that podcast, I just wanted to prove that everything that they were saying negatively about cannabis was wrong. And I use cannabis socially. I love it, but I also use it medically because I need it. And trust me, my back was zinging a couple of nights there where I was like, and I didn't even take an aspirin an Advil or anything like that either. Just because I want people to know when you use something medically as great as cannabis, as great as marijuana, as great as pot, as great as whatever the hell you call it, it does what your body needs it to do. It does everything that I need it to do for me. And so as the pain being in a car lately, because I was laid up for 6 days, and being in the car is still the worst part of it because of the compression, I needed something when I got home, and I still didn't take anything. So what is the difference between addiction and a habit, Mrs. Weedman?
Yeah, so this turned into a conversation too.
Right.
Like Mr. Weedman was telling me about this interview that he watched, or this debate that he watched, and then we talked about, well, yeah, there is still the belief that you can get addicted to weed. It's a very common belief. But I said my argument is that there can be things that are habit forming, and there can be addiction. And so I believe that cannabis is more of a habit forming thing, not so much an addiction. And I think that I'm not alone in that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So here, a habit is something we do out of convenience. We do it without thinking, and it makes things easier for us, or else we just enjoy it. An addiction is something that we do over and over again because despite the harm it causes our lives, we don't have control over it. So addictions typically require treatment and lifestyle changes to manage. Habits may be challenging to break, but often can be stopped without treatment. So that would be my argument.
Yeah. And we have people we know in our lives that were addicted.
Oh yeah, we've known people with pretty heavy
addiction, heavy duty addiction.
Bad.
And
they needed
treatment.
Yeah.
But I remember one of the family members said that they did blame cannabis as being their gateway drug. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying that when they said that, and I looked over at that part, and I as much as I wanted to, and this was years ago, this was before we started the podcast, right. And I looked over because I smoke cannabis, and I smoke weed, and I smoke flower, and I smoke marijuana, and I looked over at this person, and I just gave a smirk, and I said, "Do I or don't I?"
Yeah, sometimes it's not worth it.
And you were actually talking to that person, or in the conversation, and I walked away. I was sitting kind of at a table, and you were all standing around the counter, and I walked away. But I remember hearing what the person said. Goes, I smoked marijuana, and that led me into this. No, if you went to this stronger of a drug of something that that's an addiction. I still feel if you tried cannabis and you didn't like it, because I remember him also saying that he didn't actually like cannabis either. Mm-hmm. So to me, then how was that a gateway drug? If you didn't like it to begin with.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of goes with the whole kind of progression of things, right? Like, do they consider alcohol a gateway drug? No, they don't.
No, they don't.
But alcohol is usually the first thing that people try.
100%.
And I think that is a gateway to weed, which then if you are a seeker of relief from being present in the world, you're going to get addicted to any of them. And you're going to abuse any of them. So you're going to use alcohol to excess. You're going to overconsume cannabis. And you're probably not going to like it because it doesn't really do anything if you're looking for a high or a super down, right? If anything, it's going to make you feel better. You're looking to escape. Now you're going to try other drugs. The weed didn't get you to the other drugs.
No. No.
It really isn't. I don't think that weed. I I I don't believe that.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. I don't believe
Right.
when and I hear so many people from churches that we've gone to talk about cannabis being a gateway drug. They know people plenty of addiction. People we've been around have said school articles, everything says weed is the gateway drug. And I still to this day, one, it's not a drug to me.
Well, now they're finding. I mean, look at how many people are getting off of addictive
And
medications
that's what I'm saying.
by using cannabis.
There it is right there.
Da, da, da.
And they don't rely.
It's amazing.
And they don't need once they get off that opium addiction, not
Yeah.
opium, opioids addiction, or any addiction they're on. They really realize that cannabis is there to help them as a medicine. They might not need it every day.
Right. And if they do, I would I would put my hand up in a crowd and say, "Can you smoke weed and function and still be a working, good person in society?"
We've
put my
read
hand up.
articles
Right.
that talk about this. We're going to read one in,
So
in
if
a
it
minute
helps
here.
an addict get clean, it helps somebody move away from a detrimental addiction. I think that cannabis is
Yeah.
good. I don't know if I'm making.
No, you're making perfect
am I?
sense.
I'm
You're
pretty
making
high.
stoner sense. It's great.
I'm pretty high.
But no, seriously
Yeah.
though.
But I really do believe passionately in what I'm saying right now.
Right, 100%. Between the addiction and the habit, this is not a gateway drug. And like I said, I went 3 days, and yesterday on the show, when we recorded the Grow Hour, I smoked for the first time. And I smoked this sour gas. And I was pretty faded for a second because I hadn't smoked in 3 days. And it's like taking whatever, medicine, something like that. And I took my medicine. I was glad I took my medicine because my back was freaking killing me. So it was great. It made me relax. It took the inflammation away. That was the big thing too. I took some CBG yesterday too, and it took the inflammation away. I was able to sit comfortably. I was able to do a little walking with Yuki. So I know why I take cannabis, not only socially because I fucking love it, but because I need it because of certain ailments I have. But I don't need it all day. I don't need to take it from the time I wake up, from the time I go to bed. I don't need cannabis. I don't use cannabis like that. There's some people that do, and that's fine. They're function people. They still work. They still do. They play whatever. To me, and I've said this before, I don't need it all day long. On the weekends, yeah, I kind of like it. Help when we're doing yard work. You get concentrated. You're doing housework. How boring is fucking housework? Sober, meaning like when you smoke, you pop a fucking, pop an edible or you smoke a joint,
all day
and you're working around the house all day and you're happy, especially as you get in your 50s and your body starts like breaking down a little bit. It actually inflammation. I mean, for me, it's most of the reason why I take it is take the inflammation away. So I know we're ranting on this, but I just felt compelled to like tell this story of it wasn't to take a TB break. I don't need a TB break. Okay, tolerance. There's some people that do. I just wanted to prove that it's a habit in my life, not an addiction. Now, I'll tell you what is more of an addiction for me, and that's nicotine.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I still crave it every day. There's not a day that goes by I don't crave nicotine. And I know there's a lot of former smokers out there that listen to the show and smokers that do listen to the show or or nicotine vapes. That I went to that, and that I think was harder for me to get off of than smoking cigs.
Oh yeah,
like I crave.
the vape is terrible.
Oh my god, I crave to the point where sometimes I cringe. Getting off nicotine.
I think the presentation of vapes as a solution to the nicotine addiction is ridiculous.
There should be 1 milligram.
Smoke.
There should be like
anyone who was a prior cigarette smoker for years and years and years,
20 years,
pack a day, smoke. Oh, I'm gonna go to vape and I'm gonna smoke less. Frick no, you don't smoke less because it's the convenience. You don't have to leave your
100%.
space. You don't have to worry about smell. You don't have to. You're not bothering anybody.
Right.
People hold on to their vape and they're just puffing
because
on
then
it,
it's like
puffing on
then
it,
it's like a
puffing
habit
on
in
it.
your hand. They're playing with it
Yeah,
all day
it's
long.
like fidget spinners.
Here's
it's
what
like,
I'll say. What I
and
like.
you could probably be smoking 2 packs a day in the equivalence of nicotine.
What was my ruination with going to nicotine vapes was when I left the ones that you filled up yourselves,
Yes.
because I only got 1 milligram
a week, and then you had to like make it.
Well, in the whole container of that I used to buy, the liquid I used to buy, the e-juice I used to buy, they made the stuff. So I'd ask them for 1 milligram of nicotine.
Oh, so you're like microdosing.
Very,
nicotine.
very little. And I did that for 4 years. And then I got my taste. I stopped vaping for like a couple months. And then I went to a vape shop, and I picked up just a disposable vape. And they only make 5 milligrams of that nicotine, that salt. And man, I remember I took that, and I remember going to the store and buying another one. Like, this is fucking great. I'm fucking even keeled. And for 2 more years, I used those disposables, which is disgusting because there's so much plastic. At least with the atomizers and all those, you weren't throwing that out, the big bat or the small, whatever you bought. So all the waste of those plastic vape carts that I was throwing away. And then like I stopped when I turned 50, I stopped for like 6 months, and I picked it up again, and I hadn't stopped until my birthday this year. So for 6 more months, and I'm probably one or two a week, you know? Mm-hmm. And then they raised it up to those 5,000 puffs of nicotine. Holy shit, 5,000. And you got that thing in your hand just blasting
all day long.
All day long. And that thing, to me, was more of an addiction than anything I've ever done in my life. I couldn't put that thing down at some points. And there was times where, because I was hiding it from you when I went back.
I'd hear the drawer shut 500 times a day. I'm like, oh, puffing.
So I tried to hide it from you, and we'd go out, and I wouldn't take it with. And I remember like craving the fuck out of it. Like, holy shit, man, I need to go home. And you would say something that would crack me, like I would want to be, I had to take a breath because like I wanted to come home and grab that or stop at a store and buy one. And that lasted, and now I've been off now again for over a month. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't want to go buy one. And how strong am I when it comes to my mental discipline on a lot of things?
Yeah, you cannot. Yes, you can because you're doing it now. Yeah, I know you can, but it has been for as long as I've known you. You've been trying to quit for one reason or another.
How many times since I
started very disciplined.
I started smoking cigarettes like consistently when I was 21. Mm-hmm. Got in the bar industry at a very young age. You know, had a cigarette here and there, but I'm a healthy person. I work out 4, 5, 6 days a week. I eat healthy. I mean, religiously since I was 13 years old, I've always kept a healthy lifestyle, you know, and to have that addiction to where, like, to the point where I walked past someone hitting a cigarette the other day, and I was close to giving that person $1 just to let me breathe in my face or give me a cigarette, you know. But even like I go past these vape shops, and sometimes it's like, man, I could just pop in and grab one. No one will ever know, except for myself. Is it that bad of a habit? Yes. Is it that bad of an addiction?
Sneaky.
The only person you're lying to is yourself.
I know.
You know? So, but it is. I'm not bashing anybody that you do it. That's your choice. I'm just telling you my story with addiction. And nicotine is more addictive to me than anything I've ever done in my life. You know? So, sorry we rambled a little bit long, but it just compelled me to talk about addiction versus habit, you know, and habit forming and stuff like that. So, and it being the still being a gateway drug, I hate hearing it. It makes me cringe when people call cannabis, marijuana, pot, weed, flower, tree a gateway drug. Drives me nuts. So, you ready to get the show started?
I'm ready.
I think we started, but let's get the show started.
Let's get into it.
I like this sour gas. It's talkative. Why some people believe marijuana is a racist word and why it doesn't offend this writer. We've talked about this in the past about marijuana and its forms of racist habit, but the article we read a long time ago that talked about this made me realize that I didn't need to just say cannabis. It made me think cannabis is the plant, marijuana is what I smoke, flower, tree, whatever. Latin American history professor Isaac Campos recently published findings online of his study on the history of cannabis terminology. I was walking to a cannabis business owner and I've known for a while and respect. The man who was white told me he refused to use the term marijuana because it was racist. It was on my first conversation on the cannabis beat, which I've been on for a month now, and my mind was bursting with questions. Should I be offended by the word marijuana? Now, this is spelled with a J, not an H. The Chicana journalist has been on a mission to get answers ever since. Immediately, I turned to Google and realized that he was talking about the numerous accounts saying that in the 1930s, American politicians leading the charge on prohibition popularized the terms marijuana in the U.S. to paint the drug as a Mexican vice and to have an excuse to persecute Mexican immigrants. Remember, we've talked about this in the past, which led up to the marijuana tech stack and Harry Anslinger. So you can listen to prior episodes if you want to learn about that. Yet now, after talking to scholars, lawmakers, fellow Latino journalists, and even my parents, I've learned that, yes, race is involved, but not in the way I expected. First, I spoke with Isaac Campos, a professor of Latin American history at the University of Cincinnati and author of Homegrown, Marijuana and the Origins of Mexico's War on Drugs. About a month ago, Campos published findings online in a long history and study of cannabis terminology and its compelling work. Bottom line, he said the claim that politicians intentionally popularized the term during Prohibition is false, because the word was being used decades before then in the United States. And in his view, people shouldn't have a problem using marijuana, spelled with a J. In fact, erasing the word brings it its own problems. The first reference of intoxicant marijuana was found in 1842 in Mexican newspapers, and then the term made its way to the United States in the 1890s. After looking through the thousands of American newspaper articles between 1910 and 1919, Campos found that hashish was by far most common word for intoxicant cannabis during that time, and marijuana came in second. Words most frequently used for intoxicant cannabis in newspapers. So hemp was the least used local weed behind ganja, cannabis, Indian hemp, cannabis indica, marijuana, and hashish. From the bottom up, the bottom was the lowest, and then hashish was the most. Marijuana was secondly used word. I like smoking some hashish. Here's the thing. Throughout the world, people were getting high off cannabis, largely through hashish, by putting a lump in their mouths. Oh, gosh, how bitter, and how they probably chewed on it like chew, like tobacco chew, in their mouths or smoking it in a pipe. Americans began using the word marijuana to describe the method found in Mexico, smoking it through cigarettes, which had much milder and more controllable effects, Campos said. That is why the word sticks, because the word was associated with a particular way of taking cannabis or marijuana came from Mexico. He compares using marijuana to the word salsa. I thought this was very interesting. Rather than just saying sauce, it's specifically to the way Mexicans make sauce for tacos and other things. The myth, he said, that hardly any Americans had heard of the word before, and aggrieved William Randolph Hearst decided to pound the term into the American lexicon. To facilitate the demonization was first introduced by marijuana reform activist Jack Herrera in the 1980s. Was the racism against Mexicans? Absolutely, he said. But there is one piece of evidence that suggested the word was used purposely by anybody to stain cannabis. Campos said there was absolutely no need for it. It was already associated with the more foreign-sounding word hashish. The idea was racialized, became another argument from activists to push to overturn prohibition, he said. The fact that those arguments worked out, I think that's great, he said. Nothing that the laws disproportionately impacted communities of color as well as Mexico. But I'm a professional historian, so my job is to set the record straight. His influence came still be seen today. Last year, the state of Washington banned using the term marijuana in the statute, and Virginia and Maine introduced legislation to do the same. After talking with Campos, I found two resolutions by the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators passed in 2017 and 2021, arguing the term was racist and should be replaced by cannabis in statute. And I remember in that article we read, cannabis is the plant, marijuana is what you smoke. I thought it was great, in statute. Interesting, the caucus cited that study by Dale Granger, director of California NORML on cannabis prohibition in California, to justify their statements. However, the paper actually corroborates that Campos said the marijuana got swept in the movement to ban opium, which some companies were adding to medicines without people's knowledge. And many of the northern states that began the marijuana bans didn't have Mexican immigrants yet. Yet even without the Mexicans, the board would likely have proceeded to outlaw Indian hemp anyway, just like Massachusetts, Maine, Indiana, Wyoming, Granger wrote. I reached out to Gringer, and he told me in an email, there is nothing racist about the word marijuana or wana. It's the proper term for smoked cannabis buds and leaf. Our organization, Normal, is proud to present marijuana and cannabis users of all sorts. I had a great conversation with New Mexico Senator Antonio Mestasas, D. Bernalillo County, who chairs the Hispanic Caucus Law and Criminal Justice Committee. He didn't have a hand in writing the resolutions, but he did take the lead in 2007 legislation that legalized the medical marijuana in New Mexico. He was surprised that the caucus called the word racist, and it isn't personally offended by it. The claim never came up in his many years of advocating for decriminalization in New Mexico, he said, but he believes it's a better message. The word cannabis kind of has a plant connotation, he said. The word marijuana kind of has an illegal connotation. It's in our best interest to use the word cannabis exclusively when dealing with cannabis policy. I told him about another academic study I read on how successful campaigning for marijuana legalization in Colorado, Washington, Alaska, and Oregon heavily relied on white individualism, meaning the face of the focus of their campaigns were responsible, middle white class people. Matassa says it makes sense because they were pushing legalization in New Mexico. They were targeting moderates and rural conservative Chicanos. If you're trying to go mainstream and sell a product, you market to the average Joe white person, he said. Using Mexican-sounding words probably doesn't fit into the strategy. Strategery. Good article. Mm-hmm. Makes me not feel bad calling it marijuana. So, more about lazy stoners. Is there a lazy stoner? What's the data saying now? We've just talked about this not too long ago.
Right.
So now there's more data.
Yep, more data. And they are saying that cannabis users are not lazy. Well, that's great. The commonly held perception that marijuana users are largely sedentary is not supported by new data on young and middle-aged adults. The cliche of stoners being couch potatoes, eating chips, and watching television for hours was once what everyone thought of people who consume weed. But with the medical benefits of cannabis becoming more widespread, and as more people start consuming the drug, the look of consumers has changed. More studies are emerging, revealing cannabis users are actually likely to exercise more than people who don't. The latest study, which was shared in the journal Preventative Medicine, was conducted by researchers from the Brookings Institution, together with the University of Florida. For the study, they analyzed the association between exercise frequency and cannabis consumption within the last 30 days to observe if they had increased physical activity. Quote, marijuana users are equal to or more likely to exercise than non-users, quote, wrote the author. They add that the commonly held perception that marijuana users are largely sedentary is not supported by this data on young and middle-aged adults. As additional states legalize the medicinal and recreational use of marijuana, perhaps its impact on exercise, one of the leading social detriments of health, is not primarily a concern. In 2019, a paper that was released in Frontiers in Public Health found that in states where cannabis is legal for recreational purposes, people use it either before or after a workout. Many of the participants also added that they believe cannabis helps them feel motivated for a workout, while enabling them to enjoy the workout more while assisting in their recovery. As a result, they feel motivated to exercise more frequently since cannabis use helps them recover from post-workout pain more efficiently. Furthermore, participants who use cannabis before or after exercise reported that they exercised more and had positive attitudes about using during exercise, which implies cannabis may be a useful tool for exercising among some users. In other words, sedentary cannabis users, particularly those who attribute low physical activity to concerns about recovery, motivation, or enjoyment, may benefit from co-use, provided that they select low-risk exercise options that do not compromise their safety. This data suggests that many cannabis users in states with legal cannabis access use in conjunction with exercise, and that most who do so believe it increases their enjoyment of, recovery from, and to some extent the motivation to engage in exercise. As these factors positively correlate with exercise behavior, using cannabis with exercise may play a beneficial role in the health of cannabis users, says the study. There's a stereotype that cannabis use leads to people being lazy and couch locked and not physically active, but data suggests that this is not the case, writes Angela Bryan, senior author of the study, who is also a professor in the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience at the Institute for Cognitive Science. Naturally, when people are more motivated to work out frequently because of their cannabis use, you get people who are healthier and fitter than their non-consuming counterparts. A study from the University of Colorado Boulder analyzed it, and their findings were interesting. However, they did limit their study set to senior Americans, since adults over the age of 50 are the fastest growing population of cannabis users in the United States, and those 65 years and older are exhibiting the greatest increase in cannabis use, says the researchers. Body mass index of cannabis users was significantly lower than non-users, says the study. This preliminary data suggests that current cannabis use is not associated with a negative impact on fitness and efforts to increase exercise in sedentary older adults. Interestingly, numerous studies have found that overweight and obesity rates are significantly lower among cannabis users compared to non-users. Woo, says the study. For example, it was found that young adults who reported using cannabis daily were approximately 1/3 as likely to be overweight or obese at 21 years of age compared with young adults who had never used cannabis. Research on the association between cannabis and exercise engagement, although limited, is suggestive of a positive association. A survey of adults 20 to 59 years of age found that current cannabis users were significantly more likely to meet minimum physical activity recommendations than past users and non-users, wrote the researchers. While the study authors were unable to provide any explanation as to why cannabis users are fitter than those who don't partake, they hypothesized that as cannabis users report that cannabis use increases their enjoyment of and recovery from exercise, the users in our sample may have found their prescribed exercise program more enjoyable and manageable. Bottom line, people who toke up may tell you that exercising while high makes it much more enjoyable. But beneath the surface, there are likely many chemical interactions at work. For example, people say that running gives you a runner's high, which is described as a euphoric feeling that people reach at a certain level during their workout, due to the release of chemicals called endorphins. A 2003 study discovered that exercise-related euphoria we feel may actually be originating from our endocannabinoid system, since researchers found high levels of anandamide in the blood of participants who ran during lab experiments. So, why not incorporate more cannabis into your fitness routine? Go ahead. It'll do your body good.
And we've talked about cannabis and exercise before, and some people need to be careful, though, just so you know. Incorporate it if you do. Some people, I know a lot of people that go to the gym and work out, and they like to use. I know some people that can't because their heart rate might get so high. Just start low and go slow if you decide to incorporate it. So, RFK Jr. I'm not one to talk about my political stuff with people. You know, I vote for who I like, who I best believe that fits what I like. But I loved his dad, everything I learned about him. I loved his uncle. In that whole era of the 60s, there was a lot of great men and women that fought for a lot of stuff and died for the stuff they fought for. And his family, tremendous losses to this country and stuff like that. Whether you liked him or not, he still was a good person. And I like RFK Jr. and what he's talking about when it comes to legalizing marijuana and using.
Did he die?
No. His dad died.
I know.
You know, and his uncle died.
Right.
No, he didn't die. No, he's running for president.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So what did I say?
I
Did I
don't
say
know.
he died?
I spaced out.
Oh,
And you were saying
No, he's
whatever you said. I thought you were implying he was dead.
No, he's dead. Actually, he almost got mopped up.
Yeah.
He was doing a talk, and there was an imposter as a U.S. federal marshal with guns and everything that got into where he was doing his talk.
Whoa.
And because the United States is supposed to give candidates running for president security, and they refused to give this man security. So I'm not here to talk about who you want to vote for, who you don't want to vote for. I just like what he stands on, and what he stands for marijuana, and using the revenue to fund treatment centers would be part of his presidency. And he believes in fully legalizing federally marijuana, and he's open to the banking services for the industry and using cannabis tax revenue to fund drug treatment and rehabilitation centers. You should read his history. He was a lawyer that fought for cleanup of the Hudson, and women used to. He was a big proponent for medals in when you get shots, vaccines, and stuff.
Shots.
Shots, like getting shots, like vaccine shots.
So
you're baked. Well, you drank Trail Magic and you smoked some sour gas by Big Earl. So
Sorry.
So during his appearance on C-SPAN, Washington Journal on Wednesday, Kennedy, who is running as a Democrat, I think he should just run fucking straight as an independent, but that's just me, took a question from a Republican caller who asked him to lay out his position on cannabis policy. The son of former Attorney General Robert Kennedy and nephew of President John F. Kennedy reiterated that he wants to make federal legalization coupled with strategic use of tax revenue part of the campaign and part of his presidency. He disclosed before Kennedy said that he struggled with addiction to other substances when he was 15 years old. You got to understand, he saw his uncle and his dad murdered. Straight up just shot, murdered.
Right.
So I mean, he reiterated his concerns about the proliferation of stimulants and mind-altering substances, but he also said he believes in personal freedoms and considers the current policy of criminalizing and incarcerating people over drugs to be untenable. What I advocate for is we should legalize marijuana. We should have the federal tax on marijuana that is designed specifically for drug treatment and rehabilitation. He said, adding the renewal centers should focus on treating the rise of mental illness and PTSD and drug addiction that is debilitating our children. And isn't it this month, September, Suicide Prevention Month? Isn't that September?
It might be.
Yeah, I think it is. So I like that too. He talks about mental illness. We need to start healing our country in many ways, said Kennedy, who has previously described such centers and places where people could be also learning organic farming as a therapeutic tool. He also voiced support for following cannabis businesses to access traditional banking services, saying the status quo has created a cash-intense industry that encourages more crime. The candidate also keyed in on a caller's party affiliation, said, yes, he's very, very happy that I'm getting supporters on all parts of the political spectrum with just a common sense approach and truth-telling. Since entering the presidential race in April, Kennedy has repeatedly promoted his comprehensive drug policy agenda, which he previously said would also involve legalizing and taxing certain psychedelics. Also, that month, he discussed his own 40 years of sobriety during an interview on the podcast Club Random with Bill Maher, declining Maher's offer to smoke with him on the show. He didn't appear to mind the host's indulgence over the course of the chat, however. So, I'm not here to tell you who you vote for. I just like his stance on cannabis and marijuana policy, and I just think he's a cool dude. So, 6 tiers of cannabis edible dosing. We talk a lot about edibles for a reason. Edibles are so popular. I think a couple months ago, edibles actually outpaced flour for the first time.
Crazy.
Yeah. So more and more people are doing it. We see people all the time talking about edibles now. We never thought. I do edibles. Do you smoke? No. But I'll do an edible. Our Paulie, our son, doesn't smoke much anymore, but he loves the drinks. Yep. The fucking drinks. So thanks, Trail Magic, because he's going to get a 4-pack of them. But he loves the drinks. And when we had our 4th of July party, a couple of O-Dog's friends were over, and they wouldn't smoke. They wouldn't eat edibles. But when I offered them a drink, they fucking took that and drank it. And they asked if they could take one home with them. Like, I don't give a fuck. Take one home.
Right.
Very weird.
Interesting.
So,
same drug.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So
same intoxicant.
Yes.
Right?
So how about just saying plant? Stop calling it a drug. Stop calling it intoxicant. How about it's just a plant?
Fine. Don't get so salty.
I'm not salty. Not with you.
All right. I'm going to my article.
Tell them about the tips and tricks.
6 tiers of cannabis edible dosing. How much you should take. Cannabis is consumed in different ways. One of the most popular forms is edibles, and it's tempting to try them. But not a lot of people know beginner edible dosing, and it depends on a few factors. Those who wish to get high on edibles need to take a few factors into consideration, such as their body weight, metabolism, and tolerance. People who are heavier than average may have to take higher doses. The rate of your metabolism can also be a factor. For example, the high that edibles provide can wane off quicker on those with a faster metabolism. On the other hand, those with a slower metabolism can experience the opposite. Cannabis tolerance should also be taken into account. If you're a frequent cannabis consumer, regardless of your consumption method, the compounds of marijuana, THC, and CBD can already be present in your system. Therefore, your cannabis edible dosing may have to be higher than the starting average. What are your reasons for getting high? And your goals, right? The high from cannabis is believed to be beneficial for a number of health ailments, whether it's to help you unwind after a stressful day at work, or if you suffer from mild to moderate pain from a disease. There are different reasons why people wish to take cannabis edibles. The intensity of the high that cannabis can give should also be considered. Is it to calm you down? Are you looking to be practically glued to the couch for the next few hours? Well, here's a guideline based on the article that was originally in Leafly about edible dosing. So, 1 to 1.25 milligram THC edible dosing. For first-time users, cannabis edible dosing should be approached cautiously. A microdose of 1 to 1.25 milligrams might suffice. Individuals who also seek mild but somewhat noticeable relief from stress, anxiety, and mild headaches and pains can also benefit from microdosing. This should be sufficient edible dosing for those who want to feel more focused or creative without the woozy effects of cannabis. 3 to 5 milligram dose. A low edible dosing of 3 to 5 milligrams is the standard recreational dose. Like the effects of microdosing, low dosing offers the same benefits, but on a slightly more intense level. If you wish to sleep better, you can also go for a low dose of edibles. However, this dosing can make people sometimes feel intoxicated. As such, some individuals' muscle coordination and visual perception could be impaired or altered. 10 to 15 milligram dosing. Moderate cannabis edible dosing is typically reserved for people who have a high THC tolerance. This is also recommended for those who suffer from moderate to severe aches and pains. 10 to 15 milligrams of THC is the standard highest dose of a single edible. In gummies, a cookie, or a chocolate bar piece. Then we have 20 to 30 milligrams. This is considered a high dose of edibles. People who ingest cannabis edibles this high in THC can feel highly euphoric. It can likely impair their coordination, perception, and judgment. This dose is typically for people who have a high tolerance for THC. And 50 to 100 milligrams. Well, cannabis edible dosing of 50 to 100 milligrams is considered very high. At this dose...
Yeah, you are.
That'd be bad for me. At that dose, you can possibly feel the unpleasant. I think most people would feel the unpleasant
But we
side
know
effects.
people that can do that.
Yeah.
I know people. I know somebody that took 500 milligrams in my face and didn't even get high.
Just took a little nappy.
She did not get, no, this girl did not.
Oh.
She ate 500 milligrams of gummies and candies. In about 30, 40 minutes, just wrapped them and just ate them. 100 milligram per.
Why?
Just to prove to everybody that we were with that she doesn't get high off edibles.
Did you see her like 3 hours
She
later?
was with us the whole time, sober.
That's crazy.
She waited 4 hours before she even smoked to prove to us that what, and we were like, fuck.
But
Mr.
when
G
she
was
smokes,
with me.
she gets high?
Oh yeah. She
Crazy.
dabs, all that stuff. You can
bizarre.
ask Mr. G next time you see him.
Edibles just don't-
I'm like, well, I know what you're high on. Fucking sugared out, girl.
All right. At this dose, you can possibly feel the unpleasant side effects of cannabis, such as a racing heartbeat, nausea, and anxiety. Though typically consumed by patients who suffer from the effects of cancer, People who can tolerate this high of a dose also ingest edibles with this much THC. Wait. People who can tolerate this dose also ingest edibles with that much THC. And then we have the 100 to 500 milligram category. Dosing at that level is considered an extremely high dose.
You think?
The probability that someone will experience side effects of cannabis is also very likely. This is reserved for those who wish to mitigate extreme pain they're dealing with, such as those with cancer, inflammatory problems, or they might suffer from extreme and chronic pain. Are there dangers to taking high doses of cannabis? It's often said that there is no such thing as a marijuana overdose. While it's true that nobody has been reported to have died as a result of cannabis use per se, some of the effects and side effects of weed can contribute to injuries and death. Cannabis can increase a person's heart rate and blood pressure. If you suffer from cardiovascular problems, marijuana can exacerbate your symptoms. Marijuana is also known to make a person function similarly to being intoxicated on other more harmful substances, such as alcohol or drugs. That's why it's highly discouraged for anyone to drive or operate heavy machinery while under the influence. It can result in accidents and death. THC is also a psychoactive compound. When THC is introduced into your system, it can change your physiological state. Though generally reported to be positive and euphoria-inducing, some people can experience a bad trip. It can make them feel stressed out, anxious, or paranoid. Those who already suffer from mental health conditions that make them prone to these symptoms can potentially experience psychosis. Cannabis edible dosing varies with persons' physiological attributes and desired effects. Edibles are generally safe to consume and they're widely available. However, they can also come with side effects, especially with higher doses. If you're not sure which edible dosing to start with, ask employees at your trusted cannabis dispensary and follow the golden rule. Start low and go slow.
Yeah, and be safe.
Yeah.
It's okay if you start low. Get that endocannabinoid system up. Unless you're in Oklahoma and you could take 10,000 milligrams, 'cause that's what they sell out there now.
10,000?
10,000 milligrams. Yeah, for $100.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. On September 27th, it's official. Senate committee schedules cannabis banking vote after 10 years of delay. About time. Excuse me, everybody. Montana's legal marijuana sales hit record 28 million in August. Good for them. Missouri brings in 119 million in sales in August, and they probably would have done more if they had more flour. Maine sets new marijuana sales record for fourth month in a row with nearly 22 million in purchases in August. Good for Maine. Nebraska activists kick off 2024 medical marijuana ballot campaign, and the governor, the same fucking governor, raises concerns about children again. You know what, Governor? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Let the parents deal with it. It's their children, not yours. Let them teach their kids. It's going to go federally legal eventually. States around you, they have to learn about it. So why don't you teach them about it so they understand it instead of hiding it and they're going to want it? That's all. I don't know. Am I thinking straight? New York to open adult use marijuana market to all businesses, including large MSOs and medical cannabis companies. You can't even get the people that have been fucking waiting to get their licenses done and ready to go, and you're expecting these businesses to come in now and take over? You fucked up, New York. You really did. I'm glad the fucking streets smell like weed and it's legal to smoke wherever the fucking people want, because I hope they outgrow you, and I hope these fucking little bodegas still make money, because you really fucked up. 8 major impacts of rescheduling of marijuana could have a publicly traded cannabis company. The 280 taxation elimination, growth opportunities. They're going to be listing on major stock exchange, which is going to happen because you can buy cannabis stocks through the Canadian Stock Exchange. Stock custody, investor acceptance and confidence, stabilizing regulatory environment, increased profitability, and rescheduling or descheduling. So that's just what you're going to see here in the future when it comes to all you Brads and Chads and all the high-end business people out there in the world that are going to do it on your end and make money the way you want to make, and a lot of suckers will buy your shitty weed. but the real fucking people will know where to go, and the legacy will still keep on. So this is crazy. You ever shopped at a Dollar General? I never have. I've driven past hundreds of them. But have you ever shopped in one before?
Yeah, I've gone into one before. Yes,
you know,
I had to think about that.
Okay.
Yes.
You ever found 100 pounds of marijuana on the shelves? Because someone in one Dollar General store they did.
No, if I did, I'd be like $1.
$1 a pound.
I got it. I got my bag. I'm just going to go into my car.
I thought this was a great idea in Denver. You can rent a bong and a vaporizer and they'll deliver it to you.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's fucking a great little business for somebody called 420 Airport Pickup and City Sessions for tourists coming into town. And they need and they'll bring you all the different kind of stuff that you need. Puffcos and fucking Zencos and volcanoes and vaporizers and packs and whatever. And they'll deliver it to you. Now, I don't think they deliver weed, but they deliver all the accessories that you'll need. So instead of having to go to a store and buy it and leave it there and you're wasting money, they'll bring it and then they'll pick it up. I think that's fucking awesome.
Sweet.
That's a cool little business. Whoever thought of that. Remember I said a long time ago, I said, people are going to think of things because they might not be able to get into the flower selling and
all the ancillary businesses.
Right. Like 8 decades.
Yes.
Right. But I think this is a wonderful idea. And then you have a cool little van that you bring it in, and wash the shit in the van, and you deliver it all nice. I think it's fucking great. Good for them, whoever they are. Come on the show. I want to hear about you. New Jersey regulators give thumbs up to edibles. And now MSOs can go in there too. Syrups, pills, tablets, capsules, chewables. It's all going to be allowed in Jersey. The place I was born. What are the five Johnny 5 big moments in cannabis history?
Yep. Here we go. Ready? Number 1. First known mention of pharmacopoeia circa 280 BC. No, 2800 BC. A freaking long time ago.
BC.
There's plenty of evidence to suggest the ancient use of cannabis in multiple civilizations, dating back 10,000 years and beyond. According to the University of Sydney's Lambert Initiative, Emperor Shennong's Pharmacopoeia Classic of the Materia Medica was one of the first to formally list cannabis as a medicine circa 2800 BC. Emperor Fuxi, whom the Chinese credit with bringing civilization to China, mentioned Ma, which Mr. Weedman now calls Grandma Ma.
See, I
which
told
may
you.
have referred to cannabis 100 years earlier.
Can I say something? When I said that to a couple people the other day, you and I don't know who we were talking
I was
to.
like, you're full of shit.
Y'all fucking doubted me.
You're full of shit.
I was so upset.
Where'd you see that, on a cartoon?
Man, oh man. And I probably did too because I watch
you
anime like
probably
a
did.
fucker. So
I know.
I watch a lot of, I'm a nerd. I watch a lot. If you ever want to know, talk to me on the side and DM me or something. I watch a fucking shit ton. I probably heard it on fucking one of the shows too. So,
Probably.
And you all making fun of me. All disbelievers. Disbelievers.
My weed. I was like, bullshit. That's not.
For the win! For the win!
Number 2. The first arrest under the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Let me just say, 8 decades ago. We are far from seeing the last cannabis prisoner, but we know who was the first. Ironically, adult use Pioneer State, Colorado is where the first cannabis arrest took place. One day after the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 went into effect, Moses Baca, 23, was arrested in Denver, Colorado. Police allegedly found a 1/4 ounce of reefer in his drawer at a rooming house as they were arresting him for a drunk and disturbance charge. A few days later, bootlegger Samuel R. Caldwell was also arrested and charged with selling marijuana. Baca, get this, served about 18 months in the U.S. penitentiary Leavenworth in Kansas.
Damn.
And that is the same place where Caldwell was held. Number 3, first U.S. medical patient. I'm high. Number 3.
Did that drink get you?
I guess. I was like, did I smoke again? And that's probably what's happening. All right, number 3. First U.S. medical cannabis patient in 1976. 1 year after getting busted for growing pot, Washington, D.C. Superior Court Judge James A. Washington ruled on November 24th, 1976, that Robert Randall had established a defense of medical necessity to use cannabis for his glaucoma. Randall then became the nation's first medical cannabis patient and received a regular supply, get this, of 300 joints per month, provided by the federal government from the cultivation site at the University of Mississippi.
All I gotta say about that is good for him.
Good for him, I know, and all of his friends.
300 joints.
And his friends.
Are you fucking
I know.
kidding me?
That's nuts.
It's so good.
Randall's case eventually led to the FDA's Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program, which allows certain people to get experimental cannabis treatments before they have gone through rigorous approvals. 4. The first state medical cannabis law. That was in 1996. New Mexico was the first state to recognize the medical properties of cannabis, establishing a therapeutic research program for glaucoma and chemotherapy on February 21st of 1978. But it was California's Proposition 215, which created the first major statewide medical cannabis program and resulted in the biggest change. California voters approved Prop 215 with over 55% in favor via an initiative on November 5th of 1996. This established a blueprint for dozens of other states to follow. And 5. First country to legalize adult use cannabis in 2013.
I still want to go
Uruguay.
here. I still want to go.
They became the first country to legalize the cultivation, sale, and possession of cannabis on December 10th of 2013. Uruguay decriminalized possession of the plant in 1974, but it took a lot of time to move forward to the legalization of possession and sale. Nearly 1 year later, in August of 2014, Uruguay legalized the cultivation of up to 6 plants at home and formed cannabis social clubs and state-controlled cannabis dispensaries. It would take about 4 years for the country to finalize regulations.
We need to go there.
I don't know.
I can't wait. It's on my bucket list to go to the first country that legalized cannabis.
That would be cool.
It'd be amazing. International news, I guess Uruguay was international news, but international news, Latin American and Caribbean countries agree to rethink failed war on drugs, saying it's not achieving expected results. You think? Just look at the United States of America spending $1 trillion on it. You think? Man with Tourette's calls on NHS to increase cannabis's prescriptions, and this is in the UK. A man with Tourette's who spends thousands on medical cannabis has called on the governments to make cannabis more readily available on NHS. Connor Ryder from Dorset gets his prescriptions from private clinic and said it was the only thing that controlled his severe tics. Well, hopefully he can get cheaper, better, more available. So come on, UK. Man, you got a lot of people that grow and smoke and do a lot of things out there. And I don't know if you turn a blind eye, but the people I know that have been busted for weed out there, you don't see them for a long time. So Brazil opens the first Expo Cannabis amid pot debate. Not even legal yet. Come on, Brazil. Government plans to develop a robust modified ganja industry in St. Lucia. I cannot wait to go there one day. So legalize it so we can go and not have to worry about it. I love Hunter S. Thompson. You know me. I've read a lot of his books. I mean, Hell's Angels, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the politics books he's wrote. I mean, just all the stuff. I mean, true. The guy is fucking one of the best. And but the founder of High Times was wilder than him, huh?
That's what this article has to say.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. Of all the psychedelic eras, counterculture, rabble-rousers, perhaps none was more outlandish than handlebar mustachioed High Times founder Thomas King Forcade. Consider the man's one interaction with outrageous Hunter S. Thompson. Thompson, famed for his lunatic, drug-fueled Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, was planning on interrupting the 1970 America's Cup yacht race in Newport, Rhode Island, by sailing his rented super yacht into the middle of it. Forcade went along for the ride, bringing with him 2 massive speakers with a 5-mile range he'd somehow liberated from a Minuteman missile silo.
Dang.
But by the time Thompson managed to decorate the side of the docked race boat Forcade? Have I said his name right this at all yet?
That might have been the first time.
I think so. Forcade had already been banished from Newport. He'd been arrested for disturbing the peace and becoming too much, even for the gonzo journalist Hunter S. Thompson. Thomas King Forcade was really, this helps, Gary Godson. He was born in 1945 and raised in conservative Phoenix, Arizona. His father died when he was 11. He was a weird kid, always really suspicious of everybody, a classmate recalled. Goodson liked racing cars and dreamed of becoming an automotive mogul. But after high school, he saw that he wasn't making any headway toward becoming the next Henry Ford. Instead, he joined the Air National Guard and worked a temporary job at a typesetting company. Always looking for a way to strike it rich, by the late 60s, he targeted the burgeoning counterculture. In the classifieds one day, he saw the National Underground Press Syndicate was looking for administrative help. Founded in 1966, the Underground Press was a collaboration between alternative weeklies like the Los Angeles Free Press, the East Village Other, and the Berkeley Barb, all focusing on youth culture, leftist politics, pro-marijuana legalization, and anti-Vietnam War sentiment. The UPS acronym would allow all to share editorial content. Seeing an opportunity, Goodson renamed himself Thomas King Forcade and called the number listed, explaining he was the publisher of an underground Phoenix newspaper called the Orpheus, which was a blatant lie. Forcade talked himself into becoming the unpaid administrative head of the UPS from his office in Phoenix. Forcade ran with it, selling enough advertisements to gain money and power in the position. By the time he showed up at the New World Drug Symposium in Buffalo in February of '69, Forcade considered himself the man in charge. "I'm Tom Forcade, head of the Underground Press Syndicate," he announced, dressed in an intimidating all-black suit, moccasins, and a wide-brimmed hat bedecked with buntings of the American flag. His authority was confirmed for his fellow flower children when he unholstered a large pistol, and under his guidance, the UPS began ranking in as much as $250,000 of advertising per year. He then began producing an alternative Arizona weekly called the Orpheus, from either a ramshackled Phoenix house under police surveillance or a 1946 Chevy school bus retrofitted to carry a printing press. Tom drove the bus around Phoenix dressed as a pastor to convince authorities who might pull him over that he was a preacher. What a clown. That's nuts. After that, and before being given a ticket, he would lead his hippie brethren inside the bus in a fervent singing of hymns, which always chased the cops away. Forcade was kicked from the Air National Guard after being diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic, either because he was a paranoid schizophrenic or a guy acting like one to increase his counterculture bona fides. Then, due to ever-increasing police surveillance in Phoenix, or because a dead body in possession of Gary Goodson's driver's license was found in the desert outside the city, Forcade left Arizona for New York. Near Union Square, Forcade ran a UPS headquarters decorated with psychedelic rock posters and filled with marijuana bales hidden behind stacks of newspapers.
Good for him.
In a back room of that office, he slept in a pine box painted to look like an American flag. He was just a strange dude, a fellow not shipping packages. Underground Press Syndicate, right? Wasn't that it? The employee said, but by then, Forcade was a strange dude with power, and virtually no counterculture event happened without him. He was contracted to put out a daily newsletter at 1969's Woodstock Festival, which really didn't pan out. Later in 1970, Warner Brothers tried to make a buck off youth culture by organizing a film and cross-country hippie trip called the Medicine Ball Caravan. Tom made a point of ruining it. He built a 20 by 6 stage with his massive speakers atop a 1965 Chevy convertible and, dressed like a heavily armed World War I general, spent the entire trip disrupting the film. With mainstream media trying to profit off the counterculture, 4K rebranded the UPS in the early 70s as the Alternative Press Syndicate and warned editors to find their niche. You're going to have to identify some sort of base that the straight press can't cover, either sex, drugs, or politics. For 4K, the choice was drugs, marijuana in particular, which Tom not only smoked, but sold. He may have smuggled it too, once calling a friend to say he had just crashed a small plane in Mexico. Mysterious Tom never mentioned that again, but he did begin selling weed in bulk from an illegal smokeasy on Greenwich Street. There, behind 2 metal doors, was a massive safe where solo buyers could purchase copious quantities of marijuana, earning 4K some $5,000 a night. But unlike other illegal New York dispensaries where smokers buying ganja could chill, 4K's was a buy it and beat it operation. Spreading the weed gospel wasn't the only reason 4K founded High Times magazine, though. I needed something to keep me from killing myself out of boredom, he admitted candidly. First published in 1974, the magazine included lifestyle, primers, political news, and updates on the battle to legalize marijuana. Every month, there was also a centerfold that lovingly depicted rare and notable drug specimens.
Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. High Times was an immediate success. Newsweek and Times Magazine covered the magazine's official launch party, and its initial run of 25,000 copies promptly sold out. The magazine's popularity would continue to grow, eventually featuring on its cover luminaries such as Susan Sontag, Debbie Harry, Andy Warhol, and even the Dalai Lama himself. It became a cultural touchstone of the 1970s, doing for weed what Playboy had done for sex. As for Thomas King 4K, the money and power that the High Times brought was never enough. He alternated between being an evil boss, red-faced and furious over imagined mistakes committed by his staff, to the most exciting one, taking employees on plane trips over the Everglades while wolfing down quaaludes and unloading shotgun blasts into the swamps below. Sometimes 4K imagined even greater success for the High Times organization, like starting a 4th TV network, opening a bank, or buying a Concorde jet. But he was wise enough to know how crazy some of those proclamations might sound. Normally, he followed up those grandiose plans by loudly asking his assistant to bring me my lithium. By 1978, at just 33 years old, Thomas King 4K committed suicide. The High Times founder left no instructions regarding his body, so the magazine's staff planned a memorial service at Windows of the World in the World Trade Center so that those in attendance could get as high as possible. Benefiting the man's legacy, some of Tom's ashes were reportedly knocked from their urn accidentally and vacuumed up by a busboy. Accounts differ, though, and decades later, some attendees claimed that his ashes were rolled into the joints for everyone to smoke.
Shit's crazy.
Wild.
Awesome. I mean, it's history what he did. You know, the magazine is it's all over.
It's still digital.
Yeah. So.
Can you still buy print? Maybe.
Probably. I just haven't bought print in a long time anymore.
It might be out there.
Grateful Dead to launch cannabis vaporizers in partnership with G-Pen. Good for them, but they should have done a flower brand. Like, did their own. So, Ms. Weedman.
Miss Weedman.
Some good stuff today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the end of the show. Boo.
Boo-hoo.
You got anything else to say, Mrs. Weedman?
I don't. I'm going to get normal again.
Oh, that's sour
I mean,
gas.
why not, right?
I'd like to thank Big Earl for
Yeah,
that
Big
one.
Earl, thanks.
And I also like to thank Trail Magic and
Thank you, Trail
our good
Magic.
friend Brandon over there. We appreciate you sending us some fine drink. That got Mrs. Weedman a little more higher than she was thinking. So we love y'all out there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for just being you. Live for today. Okay? Live for today. Your past are the memories, right? Good, bad, ugly, whatever you did, it's the past. Don't forget them. They're part of you. Your future you can't predict. You could die tomorrow, unfortunately, or you can become a billionaire tomorrow. but you don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah. Or you could just keep on being you tomorrow. Right? So all you got is to live for today and your word. It's really all you got. So we love you out there. As Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome, long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable. 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 Acceptable.